for a parking problem.
And 423.
Yes, that's more of a 28 on truck when you're ready.
Go ahead.
The line truck, White Lincoln X-ray 985 should come back up ahead.
So you had 2000. Patrick Salvig.
10-4. If you can just put a little note in something like that, I'm going to be leaving a note on the vehicle so I can remove it.
Rockingham 505. Enter vandalism case for Athens, complainant, soon to be ex, slashed her tires and has made threatening comments to her. She's concerned he might return.
Forgive this at 32.
10-4. 532, you're assigned to a vandalism case in Athens. Can you copy the 505?
10-4. Look at that. No, 3 and Depot Street. Truck boy entering 5.
7435. 10-4.
Can you come to 43 again?
143.
You go with that 43 you had. I didn't hear any, but it just looks like we do.
10-4, I just wanted to know if you should be put back 76 to Cabana Circle or to the subject's address.
Yeah, I'll be 23 back on that found property case, and I'll be 76 to the Williams Road address to see if I can find the emergency.
10-4. 449 1120.
Now 449 1121, thank you.
10-4.
Code 4. 4.
Alright, we have 535.
Have a great college.
535.
Should be. You guys know if our woman tucked into the house. I'll flight up family.
Caller is now been able to close the front door. He's now pounding on the door, trying to get in still. Still applied to blow up there here. Not tight shirt on. Number 21 is on.
Switch is on. Here comes the throttle. Chevy breakers in. We have separation. Inboard and outboard, John. I'm coming forward with the sightseeing. I've got a blowout. Vapor 3. Inches out. I can't hold altitude. Correction. Alpha 4 is off. Track flight emergency. Flight call. I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking.
Hey guys, so the idea behind tonight's show is something I'm going to try to do for every night of the trial, although you'll see there are some things that are going to make it a little bit different. But the idea is to do a wrap up, a summation of the day's events during the trial. And so the idea would be to be a relatively short show, I think maybe like an hour and no more. So tonight, actually, I'm going to go through the first half hour, go through the developments, both the opening statements and then the first witnesses. And then special guest Karen McCormick from True Crime and Some Wine will be on at 7:30. And tomorrow, I will actually be in Dedham, and I have a very special guest coming on with me, which is Kevin J. Mahoney, one of Boston's finest defense lawyers. He was on an unrelated case, was in Dedham today. And he saw the whole spectacle outside of the courthouse. He said it was amazing. Hundreds of people there. They cheered when Karen came in. They were videoing him when he was sitting at an intersection, even though he had no connection to this case. He knows the judge. He knows the lawyers. He knows everybody involved in the case. And he's done two of the best articles I've seen on this case were on his website. One was back in September, and the other one was just a few weeks ago. So he's going to be on. And so it's really good to have an experienced, this is what I've always wanted to have on the show, and I haven't had access to recently, is experienced trial lawyers that can come in and answer questions. It's like so many times in this case, I'm like, where's the forensic data guy, or where's a pathologist when you need one, and someone that you can consult, because those are areas that are outside my experience lane. Sorry, I had to ban some idiot. Those are things that are outside my experience lane. So same thing being a trial lawyer. So there's so many great insights you can have from these guys. So, and I'll be then 9 o'clock, I'll be going on Court TV, and I'll still be in Dedham on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, the zombies are here, folks. The zombies are here. I love the zombies. They entertain me. They really do. You get a little, I don't mind. Meanness doesn't bother me. Stupidity has always bothered me. It's a flaw. But with the zombies, sometimes you can entertain yourself a little bit, at least. All right, so let's get to the recap. Now, I had to unfortunately go by my notes. The program that I had trouble with today, I wasn't able to get a transcript, so I'll work on that tomorrow. For some reason, it wouldn't recognize it. All right, so Lally's statement, I thought, was in many ways ineffective. But again, I'm not a lawyer, but I didn't think his presentations, I thought it was ineffective. I thought the writing was poor, and I thought the presentation was poor. But that doesn't mean the state's case is in any way in trouble, or even that Lally's in trouble, because their case is going to be built on the evidence, not on a dramatic opening statement. Now, to me, it's a mistake to not have a good opening statement, because it's like, why you want to start out your football game down 21-0 at the end of the first quarter? It's a mistake, but it is what it is. They have to approach it the way they want to approach it. So his focus, he started out talking about how at the scene where John was found, multiple firefighters overheard Karen saying repeatedly, "I hit him. I did this. It's my fault. I hit him." Things to that effect. How important is that? I don't know. Yanetti's already tried to suggest that what she was really saying, could I have done this? But as we'll see, there's another piece of evidence that came in later today that matches up really well in a destructive way to the defense theory on that. So we'll get back to that. But then, so Lally said there were 6 inches of snow. I don't think there was at that time, but John was found in the grass. Actually, let me skip ahead and show a video, the dash cam. that was revealed in court today. All right. So this was the dash cam of Officer Sharaf when he arrived, and it's difficult to see. It's pitch dark. What light is there is from his spotlight. And if you watch earlier, they show the whole 10-minute clip of his video coming in, and it's really dark. It's really bad conditions. And as he gets closer, as he gets on to Fairview, that's when he puts on his spotlight. So to the extent that we have any light here at all, this is from a spotlight. So this doesn't give you an idea about how hard it would be to see even with ordinary headlights. Now, you know, people could see better maybe with their eyes too than the dash cam video, but it's still interesting to see. So just pause it there. So that's Kerry's vehicle. So let's see if I can backtrack a little bit. So you can't even see them there. You see the flagpole to the left. If you go a little bit to the right, that's where the three women are and John. And you can't even really make them out. When you watch the full video, you do see a little bit better of the three women as you're getting closer. But you can't make out John, even when you're looking for him. So to me, it kind of is telling how hard it was to spot him. All right, so let's cut out of that. Okay. Lost my pen. All right. So John was in the grass, the snow, loudly described as 6 inches, but let's say it's somewhere between 3 and 6 inches there. I think maybe closer to 3. There was enough to plow. There was a plow mound, and you can see a mound if you look closely. I mean, I'll pull that video up again for you, but you can actually see that. They performed a warming. So I think we're going to hear some testimony from the medical examiners that they do have to attempt to warm the body up before they can pronounce the victim dead. So, I mean, they knew he was not going to make it, but he wasn't officially pronounced dead until he was 750. So I think they have to warm him up to a certain degree before they can do that. So Kerry Roberts, just to refresh people's memory. So Kerry Roberts is a friend of John's that goes back to high school, friend of the O'Keefe's family. She's from Braintree, where John is, but she lived in Canton. She lives in Canton now. She lived in Canton at the time of this. She was not friends with Jen McCabe, didn't really know Jen McCabe. They knew of each other. But that morning, Karen, when she woke up and went out looking for John, she went into the niece's bedroom to get the phone number for Jen. She called Jen, and she called Kerry Roberts. So we'll hear them testify later, so we're not going to go into it now. But so Kerry and Jen, so because Karen was still hysterical and intoxicated, Jen drove Karen's vehicle, and we'll maybe get a video clip of that, but drove it back to One Meadows where John lived, and Kerry followed with her own car, and then Kerry took the three of them in her car out to look for John, and they went to 34 Fairview. So then afterwards, Kerry went and picked up John's parents and brought them to the hospital. So, you know, hard things for these families to go through. There's the niece and the nephew that were living with John. The nephew was staying over someone's house, so he wasn't home. The niece they sent a friend to pick her up. So whatever time she got picked up, but let's say it's sometime between 6 and 7. So whatever time she was picked up, nobody was in the house between that time until probably 8:30. We didn't see it yet, but the dash cam of another cruiser showed up at 8:22 to do a wellness check. But I don't think anybody was actually home. But it did pull behind Karen's car. And if somebody can pull up a clip for that for me, I'd appreciate it. And I'll pull a link to it. But we can see, so Karen's car, they didn't leave it facing the garage. It was it was perpendicular to the garage facing the fence. So it was parked basically alongside John's car. If you remember seeing John's car in the videos, most of you guys have seen that. So the squad car coming in behind it, if it came in, it probably had enough angle to get a very clear image of that taillight. So we've always wanted to know what they found on Karen's phone. Was she messaging anybody? Who was she messaging? Who was she calling? And we want to know more about her GPS, but unfortunately we didn't hear anything today. So hopefully, I don't really understand why Lally would save that, but hopefully we'll hear more about it. But he did say that Karen called some of John's friends in those early hours of the morning before they found John. She told Jen on the phone, and this is witnessed by the niece, that the last time she saw John was at the waterfall. But to be fair, you could make the case that she just woke up and didn't quite remember at that time. According to Lally, he used the strange time stamp of 12:45. But what he said was around 12:45. So I don't know. Does 12:32 is that around 12:45? I don't know how accurate it needs to be in this particular moment. But around 12:45, Karen went in reverse 60 feet at 24 miles per hour. And that's all we said about it. So we don't know, does that come from, that sounds like it comes from the EVD, the vehicle data, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know. He didn't specify, but he did make that claim. And I don't remember Yannetti refuting that in his opening. So he talked about the abrasions on the right arm. Now, then we went to Yannetti's. And everything about it was better. Okay. Lally seemed to really struggle with understanding the sound system. You have a mic that's set over here that's far away from you, so the gain is turned up on it, so it picks up every sound. And you kept hearing these thuds and bangs. I think his foot was hitting the bottom of the podium, and he didn't realize it. But it really, everything about it was hard to listen to. And Yannetti didn't have those problems. Lally was sniffling and coughing. Yannetti wasn't. Lally seemed to have trouble facing the jury. He was kind of just reading from his notes. It was very monotone. It's hard to stay awake. And I had a lot of people message me that said, how do you stay awake through this? It's really hard. And I think it's a problem. I think the jury was going to lose a lot of what Lally said in that opening just because they were drifting off. Yannetti did a much better job. Now, yet Yannetti knows how to frame a narrative. And speaking of frame, that's how he began. Yannetti said, he began his opening words, "My client, Karen Reed, was framed." And then he said, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." And that's good writing. All right. He knew enough to put that before the "good morning, ladies and gentlemen." That's good writing because it shows how important it was to him. That's emphasis to be able to say Karen Reed was framed. That sticks in the jury's memory. That's how you write. I understand McLaughlin is a very good writer, the assistant DA. So I don't know so I'm really disappointed in the way the state's that was scripted. It was poorly written and poorly delivered. But Yannetti did a much better job. Yannetti's job here is not to prove something, but just to create reasonable doubt. And he's focused primarily on creating doubt on the investigation. He did a lot on Proctor. He talked about how Proctor accessed Karen's phone illegally. Now, this has not been developed in evidence yet, so we'll have to see. Yannetti and Jackson are known for exaggerating things, so we'll see. He apparently, a couple of days into it, Michael Proctor said something to the effect that I wish she'd kill herself. It seems inappropriate. Now, these are on his personal phone, and the only reason they have that is because the feds got it. But it does seem inappropriate and unprofessional. But he hasn't had a chance to answer for himself. So maybe once he testifies, we'll feel better about it. There was something about looking for nude pictures too. I don't know. We'll see what it is. It's just stupid shit. This probably goes on in every investigation. Cops just kind of talking and shit. and normally there's no feds to go there and pick it up. And it doesn't really affect the fundamental evidence. Obviously, it does suggest there's a little bit of bias here. But a little bit of bias is not the same as planting evidence, which is what you'd require. So if you remember, the defense was not, because they had not established this enough during the hearings or in any of the evidence or any of the motions, they were not allowed to discuss the third-party culprit theory. But as I predicted beforehand, they were going to go right up to they were basically going to paint the picture of a third-party culprit without suggesting it. And that's exactly what they did. And they even went maybe a little further than I thought, maybe too far, really, in a way that could put their case a little bit in risk. So, but all the stuff that we saw in that, almost all the stuff that we saw on April 18th last year in Turtle Boy's first article, which was the defense's theory given to him intact. We saw all of that with the exception maybe of the stuff about Colin. I don't think the defense mentioned anything about Colin yet. But, they went down, they went down the road of 227. They called Jen McCabe a liar. They talked about the Google search and all that stuff. I mean, to me, that's risky because now Jen McCabe is going to testify and the jury's going to see her as a normal person, and they're going to start dismissing the defense theory as ludicrous. But for today, it was powerful. For today, it was effective because I guarantee they sent that jury into the room shaking their heads and asking questions about what's going on in this case. Let's see. They also went over the German Shepherd. They basically said they have an expert that's going to testify that the wounds on John's arm were created by a dog attack, scratches and bites, they said. That's not actually what a dog attack looks like. Dog attacks with its mouth. It's not clawing you too. But they planted that seed. And once the jury sees that image, it's probably going to be hard for them to get that out of their mind. Whatever evidence is developed, whatever expert evidence and DNA evidence does to show. So it's going to be an issue. They did not talk about the health app data. They did not talk, at least I didn't recall it, any talk of John going up and down stairs. Now, maybe they will bring that up in trial, but I don't know why they wouldn't bring it up now. I expected they were going to bring that up because that seemed like the kind of thing that you could bring up without risking pissing off the jury if later on it proved wrong. So maybe that has been so thoroughly debunked by the GPS that they didn't want to bring it up. I don't know. Let's see, going through. Another really interesting aspect of this case that came up is part of the conversation about supposedly Michael Proctor illegally going into Karen's phone. Yannetti talked about violating attorney-client privilege. Now, since he's brought it up, maybe I'm free to discuss it. This is something that's been known by me and other people and Turtle Boy for a long time. I'm still not sure what the ethics is of what I can say here because it's reported that Karen sent, I'll be vague. It's reported that Karen sent a message to David Yannetti that morning, who she was communicating with because she was hiring him as a lawyer. And at some point she said something to him similar to, I didn't think that I hit him that hard. All right, there I said it. I probably shouldn't have said it. It's inadmissible because it's attorney-client privilege. But yet, David Yannetti mentioned attorney-client privilege. I don't know why he mentioned it. It's really strange. Really strange. Is it possible that the only reason this would be unethical and unprofessional? But is it possible that the only reason David Yannetti mentioned that is he wasn't directing that towards the jury, but towards his critics in the legal world? I don't know. It's strange. So I saw no purpose in mentioning that. Although, I guess in hindsight, I'm wrong. I guess the reason for that would be they fought access to her phone for a year and a half based on attorney-client privilege. They had to agree on those parameters on that. So I guess that would be the reason. There was at one point this probably came from the federal messages, but there was somebody had said to Michael Proctor, is this going to cause the homeowner some grief? And Michael Proctor said, no, it's not, because he's a cop. So that suggests different treatment. But it sucks, but that's the reality of the world. Cops are going to give different treatment to each other, but that's not the same as planting evidence. It's if you're a cop and you're speeding, you get pulled over, they're going to look, the cop's going to give you the old courtesy and look the other way. That's not the same as planting evidence. That's looking the other way. It's a passive aid. It's not the same as an active help. It's very different. With active help, you go to jail. So one thing that was really powerful to me that shows, I think this might be where the main vulnerability is of the defense, at least in their eyes, and that's the DNA. Because Yannetti felt he had to address it, and he didn't have, all we could basically say was Proctor. What does Proctor have to do with the DNA? I mean, it's not like there was, would Proctor know how to plant a hair from John's head that was found by the chem team? Would he, he didn't even have the opportunity for that. He hadn't been, I don't know. Well, I wouldn't say he didn't have the opportunity, because he had been to the hospital to see the corpse. And he did go later to the garage and he picked up the vehicle. So, but I mean, is he really planting hair? DNA was found somewhere else, I think on the vehicle or on the taillight pieces. So the DNA, yeah, I guess the DNA is, they're going to have to say Proctor planted it. And that's a tough sell, I think, on a jury. You mentioned how Proctor falsified the tow time. Another way of describing that, though, is that it was a mistake. But he listed the time that the vehicle was towed from Dighton as 5:30, and in fact, it was towed at 4:18. So it was off by over an hour. I think the best explanation for that is that he just didn't really think it important at the time, and so it's just a paperwork oversight. You get something that's a little bit off. It's a little sloppy. So Yannetti talked about how no taillight pieces were found. This is something that Turtle Boys used to emphasize. I don't know if he seems to anymore, because I think I've pretty thoroughly debunked it enough that even Turtle Boy doesn't go with it anymore. But the idea that the Canton police did not find the taillight pieces at the scene, even as the sun was coming up, the red taillight pieces, yet the state police CERT team did find it at night. But of course, he emphasizes how they found it at night, but the state police set up spotlights so that area was lit up like noon on a summer day. And the key thing is that those taillight pieces that exploded near the vehicle were plowed up by Lucky Lawford. And there's no way that the Canton police were ever going to take a shovel to a state police crime scene. And they knew that it was going over to the state police. Yannetti found it suspicious that Proctor went back over subsequent days to 34 Fairview, and every time he went back, he kept finding a few more taillight pieces. But what Yannetti doesn't tell you is that there was a January thaw, and though turtle riders might not understand this, snow melts in a January thaw. And so the snow was receding. And so that was exposing pieces. So it's not really a mystery. He talked about Chief Berkowitz 6 days later doing the same thing. Again, not really a mystery. And I don't even, if you're going to plant evidence to frame, I mean, is it really necessary to keep going back and sprinkling new pieces? How does that even help your case? I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. Let's see. They talk about how Karen woke up at 4 a.m. They mentioned how Ryan Nagel didn't see anybody. Oh, no, what they mentioned was, again, how Ryan Nagel didn't see any damage to the taillight. It's irrelevant. Ryan Nagel left before in the vehicle that he was in. He was in a truck with his friend's truck, and there was the girlfriend in the back. And Ryan left, that truck left before the accident, so they wouldn't have seen any damage to it. Yannetti went as far as to say someone beat up John. Beat up John. I don't know how that seemed to be amazing that he was able to go that far. He was told not to mention third-party culprit. Now, I thought he would mention evidence that was established, but it's not established that John was beat up. So I don't know how he was able to get away with doing that. And I was told by Kevin Mahoney tonight that kind of thing will piss off a judge. Now, I don't know how that affects the case, but you would think that it might, right? So then they talked about the 227 search, which was deleted. Rich Green, he went as far as to say that Jen was lying. Again, like I said, this is going to be a problem in the case. Once they get Jen on the stand and they see that she's not Lex Luthor, I don't know how they trust the defense attorneys after that. But for now, it was good. For now, it created that reasonable doubt. They talked about Lucky. Lucky is the plow guy who went by a couple of times around 2:30, and he did not see John lying there. And then at 3:30, I believe at 3:30, I could be a little bit off on these times, but I believe at 3:30, he went to go plow the street, but couldn't because he saw a car parked there with the lights out. And I've read the interview with Lucky, and he described it as a Ford Edge, which is owned by several Alberts own Ford Edges. But it should be kept, Lucky came to that conclusion under the guidance a little bit of the private investigator hired by Karen's team. That's the first person Lucky talked to. So I'm not suggesting Lucky lied. I'm suggesting that might have influenced his memory. It sounds like when you read the testimony, they took him out in the parking lot and they said, point to an SUV that's like what you're talking about. It would have been pretty easy for him to just even subtly look in the direction of what he wanted, So I don't know how well he could see. Lucky might have good eyes, although we're told he does have some vision problems, but he didn't go down that street because that car was there. So he's looking at it from somewhat of a distance away. He didn't want to plow in the Ford Edge. The lights were off. There was as far as he could tell, the vehicle was not running and the lights were off and nobody was in it. So it was dark. So could he really tell that it was an Edge, or could it, maybe it was a different type of SUV? And maybe it wasn't even there at all, because like I've said, witness tests in every case I've ever looked at, there's always eyewitness testimony that comes out that just doesn't match the facts and is impossible. Every case. Again, I'm not saying he's lying. It's just there's all different types of reason for that false memory or whatever. He could have been on a different street, and who knows? I'm just knowing if it doesn't match the evidence. I'm always very hesitant about eyewitness testimony that doesn't match other eyewitness testimony or the facts. But I'm not dismissing it. They did. So Yannetti was pretty effective in doing some narrative building, in talking about how the timelines to, what time Jen and Matt McCabe left to go home. And then a few minutes later, Brian Albert calls Brian Higgins. Brian Higgins doesn't take the call, but calls him right back. And the call only connects for 22 seconds. And we know from the earlier hearing that they say that was a butt dial. And then later, Brian explained he was in the middle of a sexual act with his wife. So, and then at 2:27, that's when the alleged search by Jen McCabe for how long to die in the cold took place. Again, Yannetti emphasized that John looked beat up. He emphasized that there was no injury to John's torso. He said they have an expert that'll describe the injuries on John's arm by a dog, that there's scratches and claw marks. Sorry, the dogs are barking. He mentioned how shortly after Brian Albert testified to the grand jury, they had the dog rehomed. They mentioned Higgins because it's going to come up the affair, but he didn't go into it. They're going to try to underplay it. And they tried to develop that Karen had long-term plans with Karen. I'm sorry, with John. So the only thing they mentioned was vacation plans. Now we know in the interview with this Joan character that Sean did, she said they were planning on buying 2 homes, but he didn't mention that. He just mentioned that they were planning a vacation together. And he mentioned how in the waterfall videos, they look to be getting along pretty good. Now, from my eyes, you can see that Karen's kind of clinging to him, but you really can't tell what John's thinking or feeling. He's, but this was big too. This is kind of finishing up on that. He said that John was ambushed. I don't know how that's not third-party culprit, so I don't know how he got away with saying that. I mean, you want to mention the specific data, but there's no evidence John was ambushed. I don't know how they could get away with saying that. He said, in fact, he said maybe they didn't mean to kill him. He said he was ambushed and maybe they didn't mean to kill him. So what he's saying was it was pre-planned, that the attack on John was pre-planned. It wasn't the result of drinking and something just happened in the house. No. Or that the dog got loose and attacked him. No. That it was planned. That they planned to attack this guy who none of them had any animosity with. None of them. A fellow officer. I mean, I guess you could maybe say Higgins had an axe to grind, or not an axe to grind, but he wanted his girlfriend in theory, right? But no, there's no evidence for that. And most of the evidence is that Higgins was distraught by this and that he was friendly with John, or, friends might be too strong. I don't think they'd known each other that long, but to be able to say that is pretty, I don't know. I think that's they got away with a lot being able to say that. All right. So then Paul testified. And these are tough to go through. Paul was very articulate, but he's talking about an incredibly difficult thing. One of the worst days in his life, but he did a good job. And they liked Karen. The family was close to Karen. They liked Karen. Afterwards, Paul's wife testified, Erin. She liked Karen. So, but the reason that's important is they didn't have some animus against Karen. And suddenly they tried to pin this on her. No, on the contrary, they liked Karen. They cared about Karen. They thought Karen was a good influence on the children, they said. So they didn't want there to be problems between them. So whatever they saw, though, in the subsequent days after the accident changed their minds. At the hospital, they saw Karen several times. They saw them they arrived to go in and see John, were in with John for John's body for 20 minutes. And then when they left, they saw Karen again. And both times she was being restrained by the medical staff. He didn't go into detail, but he used the word restrained and said that she saw them and was yelling over, is John dead? Is John dead? So she was hysterical. And the only communication from their part was Paul said he blew her a kiss. Now, that was not, at that time, that was a warm kiss. That was they felt bad for her. They didn't know what was going on, but they cared for her. They had no reason to suspect her. And they knew, so Paul made a caring gesture. Now, I think one thing that the zombies are going to try to exploit is in the testimony, it almost sounded like John didn't see Karen's car when he got there. He only saw John's car. So I think they're going to try to exploit that. I don't think the defense is going to try to exploit that because you're talking about somebody's memory of something from a long time ago when he was traumatized. And they showed video that shows the car there. So with when Karen arrived, you could see the ring video that shows the car where it is, where it's parked. You could see no tracks in the snow, so it's not like it was driven out and driven back. So if Sean on the Gulf wants to go down through one of his crazy theories that they whisked the car off to the auto body shop, now that there were no tracks in the snow there, the car was there. So then Karen arrives with her dad, and then in another car comes the brother and his wife. In the video, they don't do, to my eye, anything unusual. They don't go and examine the taillight. They don't really seem to even look at it. It's covered with a little bit of snow there. So I think by most people it was relatively unnoticed at that point. I don't think Karen, hold on a second. I got to make a quick call. I think you're on the wrong. I think Karen's on the wrong one, or I'm on the wrong one. I just got to give her a call. This is Karen McCormick coming on. And then I'll get through the testimony. Sorry, guys. Brief technical interlude. Karen? Hey, I'm live, but I just wanted to call you back. I think you went into the morning stream because I don't see you here. So yeah, just go into the other link.
What is this, sales stream?
Yeah, just go into the other one. And I probably need about 5 more minutes to get through. Take your time. I got to get through the rest of the testimony.
All right, I'll
anyways.
try the other link and you let me know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye.
So that's special guest Karen McCormick from True Crime and Some Wine coming on. All right. Let's see. So they spent a lot of time showing Paul shoveling the walk, and then the father of one of the kids' friends snow blowing it. Why do they show that? Well, I think the reason is we're going to find out that later on the audio that Karen says that she dropped a piece there. And so they want to try to show a piece of taillight. And then the police didn't find it. So I think they want to show why they didn't find it. Karen's, when she told that story, was trying to suggest, see, the police lied. I know there was a piece there because I dropped it. So the state is trying to show here, well, there was a snowblower moving this stuff and moves snow a great distance. So that's why whatever piece was dropped there wouldn't have been found. Karen stayed in the house for 30 minutes. Now, before she came, she called Paul and she said, "Do you mind if I come and visit the kids?" And he said, "No, of course." But it doesn't sound like she did visit the kids. She was actually cool to them. She, and then her and her father went upstairs for 10 to 15 minutes. And the reason they point this out is because that's where the computer was. And so we think the state is going to show, or at least attempt to show, that they deleted the ring videos from up there. Now, the question is why? And I don't, is it, I don't think that's because there's a real good view of the taillight or any view of the taillight, because if you pull into the garage front ways, there wouldn't be. But I think it's possible if Karen was trying to reset her EVD data, you can do that by starting your car up 100 or, depending on the model, 200 times. And I think with the Lexus, it might be 200 times. So she would have had to sit in her driveway and start and stop her car 200 times. You wouldn't want to do that inside the garage, so you'd have to pull out. So it's possible that that's what she was hiding, but we don't know. That's speculative. We'll see how it develops. So yeah, there was no animosity between the families at all. They liked Karen. So then Paul's wife testified, Erin, and it was emotional. She seemed like a really lovely person who really cared a lot about Karen. They had become very good friends in this time, very good friends, even to the point where they said, if you ever break up with John, let's still be friends. So this is, it's a tragedy for everybody involved. I mean, you're losing friends, you're losing a brother, you're losing a father, basically. Erin was on the trip to Aruba, but I don't think, I don't think she witnessed anything. She didn't witness the kiss or anything. But there was one huge thing from Erin. And I really want to emphasize this because I think this was huge. In some ways, this might have been the biggest thing to come out of today. Again, and I don't want to contradict myself because I say I'm always a little skeptical about eyewitness testimony. So I'm going to give you some eyewitness testimony here that can't be corroborated. But the reason I accept it is because it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that Erin would have a reason to make up. And it's very distinct. So at 1 o'clock, having no reason to suspect Karen was involved in the crime at all, she called Karen up on her cell phone. And Karen answered the cell phone and said that she was on her way to Dighton with her parents. It was 1 p.m. So this is 1 p.m. to put the time frame on it. Now, the defense is going to emphasize, and they have emphasized, that they believe the vehicle was tampered with around 5:30 or 5:45 inside the Canton Police garage. All right. So at 1 o'clock, let's just say there is a conspiracy, right? Hypothetically, you play out all the angles. At 1 o'clock, there's no way Karen could have known that they were conspiring to frame her, right? But yet at 1 o'clock, when Erin asked what happened, she said, "What the hell happened today?" And Karen said, hold on a second. She described what had happened, and she was consistent about that. She said how she dropped John off at 34 and how she got up. Let me turn this light down a little bit. How she got up at 4:30 from a nap, and then the rest of the story is the same. But she weirdly said, "Now I have to just remember the bad things," and then really weirdly said, "I'm never going to see you guys again. I'm never going to see you guys again." Now, why would she be thinking that? I cannot think of any innocent explanation. I don't know if you guys can. I cannot think of any innocent explanation as to why she would say that. Because she had if there's a conspiracy, right? She had absolutely no reason at that time to know that she was being framed. And if she's not being framed, and if she wasn't involved, and she wasn't responsible for the accident, why would she think that? Why wouldn't she think she would just be over there the next day why wouldn't she think she'd be at the funeral? Doesn't make sense, right? So if Karen said that, I think it's a powerful statement. And I just want to also, there was something I had skipped over. So the day before, so the accident took place at 12:30 in the morning. So that afternoon, which was the 28th, Karen sent a very unusual text to Erin. And she said, "I wish I never talked to an O'Keefe after 2004." Because Karen had dated John briefly before at 2004. So what she was saying was she was so mad at that particular moment when she texted Paul O'Keefe's wife. She was so mad that she was basically saying, "I wish I never talked to him again. That I wish I was never dating him." Now, people have moments of madness, but that's how serious the fight was at that point, that she was actually texting that. So I think so let me just I'm going to bring on Karen in 1 second. She's here. Thank you, Karen. And I just want to mention, so then lastly, Officer Saraf. So there was no cross-examining of those two witnesses by the defense. And then Officer Saraf was the first cop to get there. And cross-examination of him will begin tomorrow morning. So he works the midnight to 8 shift. And they asked him if he saw any footsteps around John in the snow. I think he said something to the effect no, and I didn't see any leading from the house either. I'm not sure. I go back and replay that again. If he did, that's a little, obviously he was expecting that, so that's not a good, but it's not suspicious, but I wish he didn't testify that way. I noticed watching it, he had no siren on and did not put his lights on until he got to the house, or right to the corner of the street. So, and there was another cruiser arriving from the opposite direction, maybe 30 seconds behind him. that one did have its flashing blues on, but no siren either. So these guys came in silent. It's very dark. It's windy. Now Karen was displaying a lot of hysteria at the scene, but that's all natural and normal. So I'm not saying that that's suspicious. That could mean all kinds of things. And then I did notice that Jen did try to make a call at that time, presumably to her sister inside, and you could tell the call failed, that nobody picked up. So those were my notes. That's my recap for the day. That's all I get. So I'm going to bring on Karen, and she may have noticed some different things, and I'll look in chat too to see if you guys noticed anything different that I missed. So, hi, Karen.
Hi, how's it going?
Very good.
I just want to move this.
So, any impressions from today, or did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, so I didn't get to watch your whole thing, but I had my own little list. So if I'm repeating what you
go ahead. That's okay. Please. Thank you.
So I felt like with Lolly in the beginning, like I wasn't expecting him to be, super energetic because he never really has been. But on the positive side to me, I feel like he's pretty confident in what he's saying and he doesn't feel the need to put this act on. So it can be looked at both ways, and that's his personality. Right. People's personalities are not going to change that much given the circumstance. So I don't, yes, it's not exciting to listen to and you could kind of fall asleep. But if you really listen, he is giving a lot of good evidence in that opening statement. Now, Yannetti was like times 10 on the actor, like dramatic mode, and the other day when Yannetti finally cleared up they were directed to destroy their phones, really was they were told that they can get rid of their phones. It's like, how he's playing with words. It's word salad. And he does have an audience of people, and I'm not trying to be rude, that just eat it up. They don't question like, oh, is that really what he meant? So until he gets caught and called out, then they absolutely believe that it was destroyed, told to destroy the phone. So today he did a few things with that I found crazy. So he was saying that there were no sirens, no lights, which I think you were just mentioning.
Yep.
But that was proven to be untrue already today, with the dash cam from the officer that first got to the scene. So I feel like anything that he says as we go through the testimony from the prosecution, it's going to kind of be debunked like that one was. So that was one, no siren, no lights. Oh, and then this one's always been a big one all along. So depending on the situation, you'll have people that say it was barely snowing that morning, and it's always going back and forth. It was barely snowing, so this wouldn't have happened, or that would have happened, or it was snowing too much. So today we get to see the dash cam, and the guy and the police officer said there were 6 inches of snow on the ground, and it looks that way to me. So 6 inches is a lot, especially that early in the morning. So he also pointed out that I thought was really important. There were no footprints coming from the house to where they found John. Yes, there were footprints around John, but how are the conspirators going to get him there? Especially if they're going to use the side that it wasn't snowing enough to cover up the footprints. So it depends on which angle they're going at that point. Because if it was snowing a lot, it could cover up the footprints. But that has to work with every situation. It can't just come and go based on the point that you're trying to prove. So to me, it was snowing a lot. To me, it shows that there was no way that Karen would be able to see him and point him out in that kind of an atmosphere, because she had to know exactly where he was. When I used to hear that, I used to be like, oh no, maybe she just, she caught a glimpse that they didn't get, but you could barely see out of out of the front of his car. So it was like, you couldn't even really make out their bodies that are standing up, let alone somebody that's laying in the snow.
Yeah, it was really hard. Yep.
Right. And he needed the spotlight to find John as well. So Karen just pulling up in this windy, snowy, and she's like, oh, there he is. And they're like, where, So I think a lot of that was important to come out today. And I think that Paul and Erin had very credible testimonies, just showing how much they love John, but also showing how much they loved Karen. I don't think anybody was planning on saying, oh, they hate Karen, because nobody did. So there was no reason to try to ruin Karen's life, pin it on her, decide that
exactly
Karen.
Yep.
Right. So what would be the motive for them, especially? So that's kind of what I got out of it today. Oh, another thing. There were multiple views of that driveway that we had just got to see this morning with the 3 cars. And you do not see a speck of taillight on that driveway. So, if they're going with, which was what Yannetti said today, that she cracked that taillight or cracked, smashed, whatever on the way out, there would be taillight somewhere around there, in my opinion. I didn't see anything. So, and I did see Karen look at her taillight in that driveway for a quick second as well.
Just glanced at it. Yeah. Well, at least they did, from their perspective, at least they didn't do anything like go over and examine it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I just want to check my notes if I had anything else on that. You probably said all of this already.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No, it's
Okay.
no, some of the things, you had some original things there.
And the big thing to me, because I always go with like the feelings, is her her good friend Erin, kind of like a sister-in-law. The things that she said to her were very strange. The 2004, which you just pointed out, saying that hours before he shows up dead. So obviously she was already mad at that point, mad enough to say that. And then the next night comes, and when Erin calls her, like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like they're close. She's like, "Oh well, yeah, I'm just never going to see you guys again. I'll have to remember the bad times." And then when Lally's like, "And did you ever hear from her again?" She's like, "No," and she had like a tear. She was sad about it. So was Paul.
Yeah.
So I think
I wish we could have had a camera. I'm sure the jury was watching Karen's reaction to that because you could tell that Erin really cared and was really still, this was painful for her.
Yeah.
The loss of the friend and trying to absorb all this. It was not long after all that they did kind of finally, because it was a break, and they went over to Karen and she didn't seem upset at all.
Yeah, she had a look on her face today of anger, I think would be the way that I was. I mean, she has that look sometimes.
Yeah.
She looked pissed off. That's the best way I could say it the whole day.
I mean, you would think that like, even if you did the crime, whatever, whether you did it or you didn't, and you see someone that's a friend of yours talking like that, and they clearly they miss you and they're moved by it, you would think it would move you a little bit, but it didn't.
No.
From what we saw,
to me, that goes to show. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's almost like the level of evil that we're dealing with, because just thinking, forget today, like her decision was, let me blame this on all of these people. Let me just pick these random friends of John and ruin their lives for the next 2 years just to get me off. I mean, talk about privilege. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Like, let me use daddy to use his connections, to use this to get me off. Let me use money. So it's really one of these situations that if she wasn't born into this family she was born in, she'd been in jail already. She could have been out already at this point if she would have just pled down. So it's the whole thing is very sad. My heart breaks for all of them.
It is. And then, and again, the people, I know some people get upset with me, including my own mod sometimes thinks that I should just be kind of peaceful to the other, not call them grifters and stuff like that. But to me, again, it struck me again, looking at Paul, he's just a decent human being that's really, really had his heart ripped out by this. Right. And yet there's Sean out there constantly saying for months that he's part of the cover up.
That's the thing. I don't want anybody to forget that has been, and I've said that to a few people on X today. I mean, I get the same way that you do. I'm not normally a nasty or mean person, but when I watch this, it like infuriates me when I watch people accuse them. And Turtle Boy was making fun of Paul while he was on the stand today. It makes my blood boil. Like, I can't believe. So yeah, Sean's a part of that. And it, to add his brother in, like it got to such a level of crazy that I never want to go back there. And I hope people are starting to see that just would never happen based on just how Paul was today. A loving brother.
They were very close, So, I mean, it's just, it's still hard for him to talk about it without sincerely breaking up, So, I mean, and you could tell he's a strong guy too, but he's still, just was close to his brother. So it was really hard. And he's already lost his sister and his, his brother-in-law. And so, I mean, it's just the cruelty of this, but again, and then now Yannetti has not said that, but for Yannetti to sit there and call Jen McCabe a liar you're trying to paint, yes, I understand you got to get your client off.
Right.
But you have to destroy other lives to do that, innocent lives. I can even understand going after Proctor. He's a cop. He's a big boy. He can take it. He's a big. That's the job. You sign up for the job when you're when you're one of the lawyers or one of the cops. That's part of it, and so you got to be able to take it. And I'm sure he can.
Random again. We always make fun of us when we say soccer mom, but that's really what she is. She's going to her kids' games. That's her life. So to be like, oh, she's the mastermind. And a thing that Kate pointed out that I tried to point out on X last week, she never clicked on the search results. So, and she never shared if she even Googled it at that time, which she didn't. She was Googling her daughter's games, which we all do. She never clicked on the information. And even if she clicked, she never shared it with anyone. So how would they know how long to put him out there or when to put him out there if nobody actually got the information?
It's just crazy, and Yannetti smeared her too. Like if she really went to bed,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, and you know what she
she's
did?
she's out there plotting murders all night. I mean,
He was like,
Jesus.
she walked up her stairs. I was like, oh my God, how dare she? She walked up her
It's
stairs.
I
So
mean, you
they just
got you know, I was a big fan growing up. I used to read the books of Alan Dershowitz, you know, and his thing was everybody's entitled to a vigorous defense. But
Mhm.
where's the line though? You know,
Right.
yes, you have to defend your client, but do you have to smear innocent people to do it?
Right. And
I mean,
a lot of people, you know, and the way they made it sound also, United, oh, they're close family friends, all the stuff that we've been hearing since way back. It's like they took the blog they gave Turtle Boy the blog, he wrote it, and they took it back, and that was their opening statement today.
I
I
know it was
mean,
unbelievable. It's the only thing
crazy.
they left out was Colin's bruised
Yeah.
knuckles, you know.
Yeah. Maybe they're gonna
Um,
give Colin a break now. I think the kid's been through enough. Let's see. I don't know.
and they had I was part of this duped
Me too.
back in July or August, maybe it was August, when Sean told me that about the Colin thing, that John had called 911 on somebody drug dealing and that it was Colin.
Yeah, I believe that
Now,
too.
he's told different versions of where that story comes from,
Right.
but I still to this day believe it has to come from you know who,
I know.
because she's did the same thing, lying about the Ring video
Hmm.
and John getting into a fight with Colin on the long. And then at the same time that they were doing that, Alan Jackson goes on 2020 and says, we believe that John O'Keefe was set up. So he uses the word set up. And
Right.
today, Yannetti uses the word ambush.
Oh,
This is
yeah. Okay.
this is just ridiculous. There's no incentive for these people to want to
Killer.
ambush him, to set
No.
him up, to kill him, to hurt him.
Right.
There
None of
would
that
be
makes
incentive if there would be incentive if Colin was actually drug dealing and John was diamond on him.
right.
But
Yeah.
there's no truth to it.
No. And even that, I
I
don't
mean,
know, you know, that or throwing something on his lawn. Like, I mean, that's life. Like, you're gonna want to kill the guy because he yelled at your son or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
even it just it doesn't add up. And
Yeah.
I think the jury is gonna have to be able to see through that, but you never know. I'm never gonna say for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
can't
it
see.
was very interesting. Well, I want to try to keep these wrap up shows to 8. So we'll sum it up here. But and if there's anything else you want to add, I wish you lived a little bit closer. We could maybe meet and you could go and experience a little bit of the
I
trial because I'll be there.
I know.
I'll be there for a couple of days.
That's so cool. Yeah. Well, let me know. I mean, I'll be around when you get back. We have a long 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'll be
So tomorrow.
praying.
So tomorrow, maybe I'll go on at 6:30 tomorrow to do the wrap up because I'm having special guest Kevin J. Mahoney on tomorrow at 7. And of course, we'll be streaming tomorrow during the day, the trial as always. And then so every night I'll do the wrap up at 6:30 or 7. And then Court TV tomorrow night and Wednesday night at 9. So that should be interesting too.
That's very cool, Kevin. You deserve it.
And I'll get to hang out with the zombies Wednesday. I get to go out.
Oh, they
and,
love you. Yeah, they're gonna chase you around town.
watch them hunt for brains or whatever else zombies do.
Good luck.
Okay.
Stay safe.
I know. All right. Thanks, Karen.
Okay,
I
I'll see
appreciate
you
it.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Bye-bye. All right, guys. Again, thank you. So I'll be back every day. We'll be streaming live. We'll have the wrap up at night, the summation at night. Maybe hopefully we'll have a special guest on when we do it. And hopefully Agent Coffindaffer and Special Agent Kate Peter will be coming on as much as they want. I'll keep because they did a great job today. I thought they hit it out of the park with their discussion of the evidence. So I will send them the link every day and hopefully they'll come on. And actually they streamed it on their channel too. So we were going on multiple channels at the same time. So thank you very much. It's been a long day, but a good day. And I got to go hit the gym. Thanks, guys. Good night.